Well, this has been a long time coming. Uh, Welcome back to the Coach's Corner. I know it's been a long time since I have said that, but I'm back right now. I'm healthy for the most part, so I can't say that this is going to be a long-term stay or a long-term return. But today, I kind of want to give my thoughts on the state of Undisputed. It was something that was asked of me, something that's been asked of me a lot as of late. So I felt like I take whatever energy I had and do my best at putting it into this video right here. So it's not going to be set up kind of like how my older ones were. Obviously, already you can see a couple of changes. These were things I literally wanted to do before I got like the health things happen. But I digress, man. I kind of want to talk about, some fundamental things or some ideas that I have that can help boost the fun factor while not overly complicating the game itself. So I won't be diving deep into like game development or any of that. I mean, just a caveat, I'm not a game developer, obviously. So there's going to be some things that people are going to want to ask the actual developers of the game. I'm not the subject knowledge expert for those things, but I have played enough games, man, and competed enough to know what a truly competitive game should feel like and how to have fun while doing that exact same thing. So I will mention things that I feel like should be pretty universal, but currently aren't. So let's get started. Welcome back to the Coach's Corner. All right, so our first point is all about game mechanics. I think Undisputed has started on solid footing, but is missing one crucial element, and that is more interwoven game mechanics. So currently what we have at Undisputed is a basic move set and a not too long ago added sidestep. So, but you also have things like slip, weaves, and the ability to block. Now, it is important to note that Undisputed is built on its own physics-based system. So there's really nothing basic about that at all. All right. Just really wanted to put that out there because that's important. Now, you have the ability to do some directional punching and things like that. But the problem is that there's not a whole lot in forms of offensive defense that are actually truly interwoven together. Now, personally, I think it's crucial to have this interwoven gameplay and these interwoven mechanics so that punching, blocking, counterattacking, all of these things work together seamlessly. What this does is this helps to create flow in the game, and it makes the player feel as though their actions have impact and also momentum. Okay, so I want everybody to take a look at something here. So what we have is an older video. Yeah, I think this video is pretty old. Of Fanatico. They took the time to put some tips together to show people how to play the game a little bit. Fanatico was putting in some really good work. I also want to caveat, this has nothing to do with him. I know some of y'all get really finicky when your favorite streamer or content creator is on the screen. This literally has nothing to do with him or his gameplay. This is simply about the mechanics only. Okay, so some of y'all who are already ready to kind of like get your torches and pitchforks, reframe your thinking. Okay, so there's a situation here. If you guys have followed my channel long enough, y'all have heard me talk about being able to slip and punch simultaneously. Now, there are some things in the game where the gap has been closed. Things like what you see on screen where Fanatico is, he's kind of leaning backwards. You can return fire with a right hand pretty quick. But the problem with all of these things is the issue of all of them having to return back to the center line. The problem with that is that because that happens, you are locked into more 50-50 trade situations than you should ever be in a real boxing match. The added problem is that what happens is because of the limitations of the defensive mechanics in the game, you're forced to really fight only a couple of ways. Now, some people can make it work, but for the most part, what you'll see is that you either fight from a distance or you do your best to get real close. Mid-range is already a dangerous place to fight at, but a lot of fighters who aren't really tall and rangy have to find a way to manage that mid to short range area. You have a hard time doing that in this game because of this situation. Okay, so I want you guys to check this out, and then I'm actually going to give you a real world scenario so that you would be able to mimic this in the game if that mechanic was applied. All right, so I'm gonna pause it right there. What you actually see here is where the opposing Danny Jacobs actually got a pretty good slip here. I think this shot definitely should have missed. I think there was some tracking issues with this one. Maybe not. Anyway, what you see is that he has implemented a slip. The problem that's going to happen is that he cannot fire right now. He's going to have to wait until the slip animation finishes, and then he returns back to center before he can actually fire anything off. That actually kind of sucks because there are multiple opportunities here to attack Fanatico that he's going to miss out on. He's got a loaded left hand right now. A slip on the inside left hand to the body would have been great because he would have caught him with his arm extended. He also could have taken that momentum and carried that right hand over the top. You have a very exposed area here. Now, I want you to imagine what that could do for you and what options that would open up if we had that specifically in the game. Okay. All right. So there's another little part here I want you to check out. So obviously he threw the punch and he missed. Now, part of that is because Fanatico did a step back jab there, so he cleared the space anyway. But had that not been the situation, Fanatico literally could have just walked out of range. And there's a very good chance that that shot may have missed. Okay. Just wanted to kind of throw that out there as well. Now I want you to take a look at what I have up here. This is Alexander Usyk versus AJ. This is fight number 1. What you see on screen is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this is obviously different punch selection. This is also a southpaw versus an orthodox fighter, but the concept is still the same. What you have is what could have been a 50-50 situation had Usyk returned back to center, but instead created an advantageous situation by getting himself off the line and then shooting his left hand straight down the pipe. Now, I want everybody to understand why this is so important. All right. And it's actually going to help to roll into my next point. Okay. So before I move on, I want to make sure that I cleared up that last part a whole lot, because I have waved that flag for a long time to get that. Having really not just the ability, because Undisputed does allow you the ability to control range and those types of things. The problem is the viewer experience. The viewer experience sucks watching just two people stay at range and just shoot jabs or step back straights. Now, I'm not saying that for my IRL boxing heads out there, I'm not saying that is inherently wrong. It's good for you to fight to the advantages of your fighter and not to those of your opponent. But the problem is not only the viewer experience, but it creates limitations for what you can and cannot do within the virtual space, which is ultimately something that you need when it comes to a video game. We cannot forget that this is a video game and fun is still a part of that. Now, adding in that mechanic that I asked for does not eliminate completely 50-50 trade situations. If you have two guys who aren't really the most skilled and aren't really the most IQ heavy, then the 50-50 trades are still there. It does not eliminate that and does not take that option away from you. What this does is adds options to your abilities in the game, which ultimately helps to create a skill gap, something that is important and needs to be added to any competitive game where you have to fight someone else anywhere on the globe. And like I said before, the viewer experience for those who want to watch these games instead of play them, the viewer experience actually matters. And it's just having those things in the game, or better yet, not having those things in the game, creates this lack of immersion. And without that immersion and excitement, because you don't really have to think a whole lot, then the game it doesn't feel good, and it damn sure doesn't feel good for long. Now, obviously, on the other hand, if you do have these things in, having more combined defense and offense together, you really get an opportunity to really finesse somebody, especially when it comes to a jab or a hook spammer, for example. Having more defensive options and being able to punish their options creates far more depth in the game, and it really can get you in this level of creativity that we haven't been able to see with the game currently. And as I stated before, that is actually what leads into my next point. Okay, so let's talk about mix-ups and mind games. All right, I get it. I know people are going to be like, oh, he's using fighting game terms and he's using them with a combat sports game. Listen, believe it or not, there are a few key fundamental things that are required when it comes to any competitive game, regardless of whether it's fighting games, combat sports games, or shooters. And mix-up and mind games are key concepts that need to be built literally into the framework of your game. Now, in boxing, what you actually want is a sense of controlled unpredictability. That's what makes some of the best fighters in the world the best fighters in the world. Guys like Terrence Crawford, Naoya Inoue, Alexander Usyk. These guys are not random. They are unpredictable in a very controlled manner. Okay. This is why mix-ups and mind games are so important. Being able to utilize things like feints, certain combinations, defense, slips, all of this stuff, your movement, and build that into overall tactics. What that does is that creates what I've mentioned before, this area of freedom, and it allows you to express yourself in the ring. It's great that we have fighters who look like some of our best legends, but if we go in and we feel the same with all of our fighters, or our tactics can't change, or they only change very minimally, then those skins don't really take on as much meaning, and they lack a lot of the sentimental impact that they should have. Now, I don't want to digress too much because that's also another topic, probably for another day. But what you want to get away from is the sock'em bop'em, like robot feel that we currently have now in the game. And how do we do that? It actually goes back to what I said before, having more interwoven ability in the game, being able to move, shift, step, pivot, roll, but at the same time, be able to have the ability to attack while all of those things are going on. That will create these well-timed counter shots that matter. It allows you the opportunity to actually get inside of your opponent's head. And that is where the mind game part comes from. For any competitive game, there are probably 3 pillars that any competitive player understands that they have to master. 1 is going to be execution. 2 is going to be the knowledge of the game and its mechanics. And 3 are going to be mind games. And that last part is really what's going to separate the top fighters and the top players in the game from the worst ones. Now, I do want to take a quick second and talk about why I mentioned feints and the counters. All right. I want to expand on that part just a little bit because it is important. I understand that when the community talks about this game, balance is the key word that's usually thrown out. But balance is usually in reference to things like stamina and power, right? Just feeling like you're hitting them harder. I don't feel like that's something that should be the focus right now. Not that it's not something that should be focused. It's just right now. Let me explain before y'all be like, Coach been going too long. He don't know what the hell he talking about. Hear me out. So power shots are something that should be earned. Power should not be given to you freely. Okay. If, let's say, they didn't tweak the damage at all, but instead they tweaked the damage on counter shots, where do you think the focus of the community would shift to? People would start to think a little more because they would want the immediate reward of hitting someone with something hard and feeling the actual impact from it. But a counter shot requires you to think. You can get lucky. Don't get me wrong. You can get lucky. But for the most part, you want to set those types of things up. If damage is given to the community freely, then you're not making them have to think, or us. You're not making us have to think about the reward that we want. Risk versus reward is a very important thing that has to be built into the system of your game. If you don't feel it when you get in and play, you're not even going to think about it. So you can't ask the community to be more authentic if the game is not built in a manner to make you fight more authentic. Hello, observant viewer. Yes, you would be correct. I did change clothes, and that's because it's been a couple of days since the last part that you watched in this video. Why, you ask? Because I felt like I was dying. Like I literally was like bedridden for a couple of days. That is currently my life right now. It is what it is. I'm dealing with it. But let's move on. That does mean, though, that there is part of this video that I am going to cut short. Now, I can potentially put that in another video another day, or that means that we could go to a live stream or something like that. Give me like a solid hour, 2 hours to talk to y'all about the rest of this stuff, because I do want to talk about some of the issues that we could run into. But I do want to tell you guys, I want to stop for a second. And actually, let me ask you guys, pause the video for a second, because I want to prove a point. Go down in the comment section, and I want you to tell me how many different ways in Undisputed that you can counter the jab. What I'll do after about a week or so is I'll come in and I'll pin a post on how many ways that I can do it, that I can actually teach it IRL, real life, okay? How many ways I can teach it, just to show how restricted that we may or may not, I could be wrong, may or may not be in the game right now. Obviously, in virtual space, you're always going to have limitations, but just how limited are we? Okay. All right. Moving on. So let's talk real quick. No transitions, no videos, none of that stuff. Let's talk real quick. Okay. What is it that I want to see in the game? Okay. There's a few things. Obviously, we've talked about the interwoven ability between transitioning smoothly between our offense and our defense, and then mixing those things together and not just having each thing be standalone, right? But what other specifics do I want? Things like a pivot. I actually can get by. I've seen this asked in the community. I can get by without a pivot, okay? And I have a reason for that. And you guys, please feel free to challenge me in the comment section if you feel differently. But the reason I don't feel like we need a pivot actually mechanic built into the game is because I feel like we already kind of have a pseudo pivot built in. And it's really, oddly enough, it's because of the camera, okay? So here's my issue with having a pivot in. If we had a stationary, say 45-degree top-down angled camera, then I think a pivot would be captured properly. You would actually be able to see your character pivot and you wouldn't really have any issues. I think with the way that we use the camera right now, what you'll end up having is every time you pivot, you're going to have to deal with the camera trying to catch up and get the action back to that kind of like side angle where we've been running with for so long. And then you're going to have these kind of like speed ramps going on with these issues of pivots. Again, tell me if I'm wrong, but what I foresee is having some of the action blocked by the other character, you not being able to see what's going on. I see issues that could happen, but again, challenge me down in the comment section so I can get by without a pivot. But things like feints, although we have one in the game, a stronger feint would be great. Something that would actually garner a reaction like from the opponent. Right now, I don't feel like the feint is strong enough. And this could be because that the game itself doesn't have enough things in it to where you can truly condition your opponent. So they may just not feel like they need to react to the feint. But I think a stronger feint, I think a parry of some sort would be great. And then again, these things that I'm asking for, okay, combined with the things that I asked for earlier on, all build into this overall ability to kind of mastermind your way through a fight, to get away from just two guys getting in range and then just you know what I'm saying, like two rams. The more that we are allowed to put our own brain into the game, the more we can branch off and start creating an actual skill gap, like a more well-defined skill gap in the player base. I think without the things that I just asked for, I don't think this game will reach its full potential. And that's a tough thing to say, man, because I think it's well on the way. But if those things aren't added, the ability to utilize your defense and your offense simultaneously, the ability to feint, to garner reactions and then to punish, the ability to parry and then punish, or be punished yourself for guessing wrong. Like all of that stuff builds into this overall risk reward system, which is necessary because that is authentic boxing, man. Like that's what it is. It's high speed chess. You're not just going in and just making moves willy-nilly, man. Like you are thinking about everything that you do, because everything is intentional and everything matters or should matter. If you can get by without having to do or to think about any of that stuff and still get wins, then we have a problem. You have either a broken system or you're missing things. And I think what we currently have is maybe a little bit of both. So I know the community is probably going to say, well, why is he talking about balancing the game? Why is he talking about fixing the power, fixing the stamina? And I said that in an earlier part of this video. I don't think that is something that should be focused on right now. But again, that's not to say that is not an issue. I acknowledge that there's stamina problems. I just saw that they're doing the last update on the 12th of February, which is really in 6 days. From the time that I'm recording this part. And they've added in a new mechanic, a flat-footed mechanic that'll has to do with stamina. But do we need it? I think that's the big question. Do we need it? Or is stamina something that can be, as some people have said in the community, that literally can be put on a slider system, adjusted and fixed per character, because every fighter stamina should not be the same, right? But I think balance is just one of those things that is really subjective. No two people are going to feel like the game is balanced the same way, which is why balance is one of those things that literally goes on through an entire life cycle of a game, and nobody ever seems to tackle it properly. And just for reference, if you take the most balanced game ever that you could ever play, which I think was I think it was called Karate Champion or Karate Master. I would have to let me find it. You might end up with a clip in here somewhere. But I think it was called Karate Champion. I think it was like in the 1980s. Each character had the exact same moveset. The only difference between the two was really maybe a hairstyle and the color karate gi that they were wearing. But what you ended up getting was an extremely balanced game. But what it turned out to be was kind of a footsie simulator. You know, now at the highest levels, obviously you can create a little bit of a gap. I could find ways to finesse my opponent, but what happened was I was extremely limited in what it is that I could and couldn't do. So strategy became extremely simple. Eventually what's going to happen is that whenever you have a group of people who feel closed in, naturally they're going to rebel. I hope that doesn't happen with Undisputed. I think it's actually, if I'm being realistic, I think it's actually happening already, and the game hasn't even come out yet. What the console community is going to think when they get their hands on this, I don't know. But I will be watching the comment section on Twitter, YouTube, the Discord, because I think it's going to be pretty telling. I think it's going to start out a lot like the PC community did. We loved it. We absolutely just adored the game at first. But once we realized that there wasn't quite as much as we thought, then a lot of people turned away. But yeah, man, those are my thoughts on the current state of Undisputed. I hope I articulated that well. I don't get as much blood to my brain like I used to, so I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like this, recording this video, because I haven't done it in so long, was difficult. But I hope I got the point across. And if I didn't, let me quickly summarize. What do we need in the game? Right? What we need is more. We need to be able to do more. We need to be able to combine our offense, our defense, in a smooth transitional manner. We need to be able to branch out our strategy, regardless of the type of fighter that we pick. We need our shorter fighters to have the ability to fight at mid-range. We already have the ability for our taller, more rangier fighters to fight at range. So we have that pretty good so far. But we also need to be able to express ourselves in the game and create a gap between bad players, man, the mid tier, and the absolute top 0.01% of your community. Because believe it or not, being able to do that is fun. Learning is fun, man, especially when you have this drive to be the best at something. What don't we need is any form of more restriction. Any more restriction with this game. And I think that we'll find ourselves kind of looking at it and going, damn, like this is something that really could have been, but didn't. So I'm going to end on that, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in again. I know it's been a long time. It's been a long time, but trust me, I have a reason for it. Listen, man, hit that comment section. Let me know what you think. This will be probably the one time, if y'all follow this channel for a long time, man, y'all know that I only really ask y'all once a year to like, subscribe, share, all of that type of stuff, man. Do all of those things. All right. I don't even think I can get paid for these videos anymore because I haven't done one in a while. So I don't even think I'm in the YouTube partner program. But it is what it is, man. But those are my thoughts. Give me mix-ups. Give me mind games. Give me the ability to slip a jab. If I'm a southpaw, slip a jab, shoot a left straight right up the middle, and then be able to rip me a right hand to the body. You know, those types of things. Being punished in that manner for simply throwing a jab should make your opponent think twice about their approach to that jab. If they don't have to, and they get everything for free, then what are we actually doing? What are we actually playing? Because that ain't authentic boxing. Hey, look, man, I say I appreciate y'all, and I'm out.